Welcome to the Analysis Zone. In today's episode, we're putting the big teams under the tactical microscope.
Today we are diving into a result that's really shaken things up at the top of the table. That 2-2 draw between league leaders Arsenal and, well, the surprisingly resilient Sunderland.
Big result.
Yeah, exactly. Arsenal, they were on a roll, 5 straight wins, and this was a missed chance, a big one, to really extend their lead. They end up on 27 points.
While Sunderland, who started the weekend third, well, they basically cemented their place as, genuine contenders with that point at the Stadium of Light. Definitely confirmed their spot.
Right. So the big question, the core question we need to tackle is this. Does this draw really validate the quality and maybe the mental strength of Sunderland, the challenger? Or does it mostly just expose some pretty critical defensive weaknesses and, let's say, concentration lapses from Arsenal, the league leaders? I'll be arguing that, look, this result is mainly a story about Arsenal's failure. Their failure to execute and keep their focus when, honestly, the win was right there for them.
Okay, I hear that, and I understand why the focus immediately goes to the title contender. But I'm coming at this from a completely different angle. For me, this isn't just Arsenal dropping points. It's a huge validation of Sunderland's substance, their courage. I mean, for ages now, pundits have kind of treated their spot in the top 4 as, a bit of a fluke, a temporary thing that would just fade away. But getting a point against the league leaders, against this Arsenal team, with their recent defensive form, that proves, I think, pretty definitively that Sunderland's success is earned. It's tactical, it's not an accident. They've absolutely cemented their right to be up there. My position really stems from the belief that Sunderland showed genuine substance, the kind you need to compete at this level. This wasn't just, digging in and defending for their lives. It was a strategically managed performance. They played a, frankly, tremendously brave and great match. Started strong, got that first goal, and kept what the analysis called an excellent, even ideal defensive shape for the whole first half.
Okay, the first half defense was solid. I'll give you that.
Right, and crucially, when Arsenal inevitably hit back and, yes, took the lead in the second half, Sunderland didn't just crumble mentally. That's usually the sign of a team that's maybe overachieving, right? But they showed exceptional mental strength, kept believing, and made key strategic changes late on. The equalizer even came from a substitute, which shows the coach can make impactful adjustments during the game. And think about those last 10 minutes. They weren't just hanging on for the draw. They actually created chances. They were pushing for a win. That kind of tactical discipline, that mental toughness, that's real proof of their quality.
That is a compelling case for Sunderland's character, definitely. But I think it risks overlooking the standard you just have to expect from a league leader. While I admire their fight, the result fundamentally points right back to Arsenal's own avoidable mistakes. I mean, our source material is pretty clear on this, noting Arsenal's defensive problems came down to loss of concentration, poor organization, and this tendency to, make errors under pressure. Let's look at the systemic issues, starting with that first goal they conceded. The mistake didn't just happen when the midfielders lost the ball. It started really with the goalkeeper, Rofers, and his decision-making. Trying to play out from the back when you're under that kind of organized high press, it's always risky.
High risk, high reward, though.
Sometimes. But in that specific moment, when time was tight and the obvious passing lanes were blocked, the smart play, the percentage play, was just to clear the ball long, immediately. His choice put the midfield in, an impossible spot, leading directly to the turnover and the goal. That wasn't just bad luck. It was, as the analysis suggested, the largest mistake in that goal. And this inability under pressure to just make the simple, low-risk decision, that's a sign of a team maybe lacking the composure needed to win titles.
Okay, I agree Rofer's decision was poor, yeah. But calling it a systemic failure feels like maybe a bit of an overreach. I mean, every team that tries to build technically from the back sometimes gets caught out. An error gets forced. And I think we need to give Sunderland credit for forcing that error. Let's look at the tactics in that first half. You're framing Arsenal's issues as internal, but Sunderland weren't just sitting back passively. They actively executed a game plan designed to shut down Arsenal's main threats. This wasn't just, park the bus stuff. It was highly organized density, especially centrally, combined with a really effective mid-block that cut off those passing lanes Arsenal's creative players love to use. Their first half defending was called ideal because apparently they worked specifically on stopping Arsenal and their key strengths. That's not luck. That's high-level tactical work, a coach who prepared perfectly, and players executing a sophisticated plan against a top team.
I acknowledge the tactical setup, sure, but I'm not convinced Sunderland's ability to frustrate Arsenal really shows mastery. For me, it shows Arsenal deciding to play, frankly, below their usual standard for a while. Sunderland's strategy was effective, yes, but it was dense, it was low risk, and the moment Arsenal actually upped their intensity in the second half, that defensive structure started to, well, it started to creak, didn't it?
Well, they did score twice.
Exactly. When Arsenal fixed that slowness and ball transfer issue from the first half, their superior quality was obvious. They moved the ball faster, forced Sunderland defenders into tricky one-on-ones, and, crucially, they started taking shots from outside the box, which is exactly what you need to do against a packed defense. That brilliant Trossard goal, perfect example of higher quality breaking through organization. So the issue isn't the organization itself being unbeatable, it's Arsenal's consistency. They lost control late, not because suddenly found a magic tactical key, but because Arsenal, well, they relaxed. They took their foot off the gas. That failure to stay focused and organized against a team relying on density and quick breaks, that points to a mental fragility when the finish line is near. It's less about Sunderland being impregnable and more about Arsenal failing to stay switched on for the full 90 minutes.
See, you're mixing up technical ability with mental strength, I think. Yes, Arsenal have more individual talents, and they showed it for maybe 30 minutes in that second half. But games are 90 minutes long, plus stoppage time. Sunderland showed superior durability by not breaking completely under that pressure, and in fact turning the momentum back around. Let's really focus on this difference. Defensive mistakes versus the opposition's quality. You're pointing to errors that gifted points. Okay, but let's look at that Trossard goal again. Yes, he maybe had 2 to 3 meters of space to shoot. And yes, that space is a lapse. But think about it. If a team forces the league leaders, the team top of the table, to rely on a moment of pure individual brilliance, a stunning, unexpected, long-range strike, isn't that in itself a kind of defensive success? It implies Sunderland shut down Arsenal's normal attacking patterns, forcing them into a low-percentage shot. The fact Trossard scored it, that's down to his incredible skill, not necessarily a total defensive collapse by Sunderland.
I appreciate the nuance there, trying to frame forcing low-percentage shots as a win. But we just can't excuse a clear organizational failure based on where the shot came from. 3 meters of space for a player like Trossard? That's a huge lapse in marking when the pressure's on. That is poor organization, plain and simple. And it feels like a pattern, this lack of organization under duress.
Okay.
And more importantly, these mistakes add up. That early Rofer's error sort of set a shaky tone, didn't it? And the late lapse in concentration, that cost the points directly. If you're seriously challenging for a title, you must demand clarity, demand courage in those final moments. The analysis specifically mentioned Arsenal failing to show the courageous heart needed to just clear the danger decisively late on. They hesitated, they maybe overthought it, and they paid the price. The errors were internal, Arsenal's errors, and they fundamentally handed the draw to Sunderland, regardless of how well Sunderland played tactically.
But let's just flip that argument. That courageous heart you're demanding from Arsenal? That's exactly what Sunderland did show, in spades. We're talking about the quality of their response. After conceding that amazing Trossard goal, facing a resurgent Arsenal, Sunderland's heads didn't drop. Their mental strength held firm, their persistence, their refusal to give up, those were the things that allowed them to capitalize when Arsenal did eventually hesitate.
And the substitutions are key evidence here, I think. When Arsenal started bossing the midfield, Sunderland's coach didn't panic. He made proactive changes, brought on pace, more directness. The equalizer, coming from a substitute brought on specifically to attack those channels, that highlights real mental fortitude, not just from the players, but from the coaching staff too. They matched Arsenal's quality spike with sheer determination and smart management. If Arsenal truly had the mental edge to see the game out, Those subs, that late pressure, it would have been dealt with. Cleanly. The fact Sunderland could match and then overcome Arsenal's quality in those vital final minutes, that's a massive credit to the challengers' mentality. Ultimately, we have to look at the whole 90 minutes, don't we? And assess the fairness of the result. Most analysts seem to agree that 2-2 felt like a just result. And that view acknowledges the balance of the game.
Really controlled things defensively was matched by Arsenal's strong response in the middle of the second half.
Right.
So a just result here means neither side really truly deserved all 3 points, because both showed significant strengths, but also significant weaknesses at different stages. To argue Arsenal deserved the win ignores the tactical intelligence and the sheer fight Sunderland showed early on, and then again right at the end. Sunderland weren't just lucky survivors, they dictated things early, and that earned them the right to get back level later.
I'm sorry, but I just reject the whole idea of a just result. When you're the league leader, when you are fighting for a championship, the standard has to be absolute. A just result is meaningless if you fail to turn a winning position into 3 points, especially when that failure is explicitly put down to a loss of concentration.
Strong words.
Well, look, Arsenal solved their tactical issues in the second half. They found their rhythm, they scored 2 goals, which should have been enough, and they had complete control of the game's momentum for a significant period. The failure to win, conceding in the 88th minute because of organizational problems, that points fundamentally to a lack of focus when the win was right there. They couldn't execute the basics, making the final clearances with the kind of professional clarity champions need. Sunderland fought hard, absolutely, but the outcome was ultimately dictated by Arsenal's inability to stay focused when it mattered most. That lapse, for me, defines the result much more than Sunderland's resilience. So to wrap up, while Sunderland's fight and their mental strength absolutely confirm their place in the top 4 is deserved, I think the biggest takeaway here has to be the structural vulnerability this match exposed in Arsenal. The league leaders showed a, frankly, worrying tendency towards systemic errors from the goalkeeper's poor choice under pressure, right through to the lack of organization in those vital final minutes. Other teams now have a clear blueprint for how to exploit Arsenal's mental fragility, and that feels like a much more significant lesson than just celebrating Sunderland's commendable effort.
And conversely, I'd maintain this match confirms Sunderland's status as a genuine force to be reckoned with. They prove they aren't a team that just folds when a title challenger fights back. They recovered after conceding a world-class goal, they stuck to their tactical discipline, and they kept believing right to the end. So the result should be seen primarily as a powerful, validated statement by Sunderland. It confirms they are genuinely tough to beat, a legitimate threat, rather than just being about Arsenal's slip-up. They showed they could go toe-to-toe with the league's strongest team and earned every bit of that point.
The match certainly gave us plenty to think about. Compelling evidence regarding the substance and resilience needed at both ends of the table.
Indeed. It really forces us to weigh the significance, doesn't it? The league leader's internal errors versus the challenger's proven, validated success. Lots to unpack.
Don't forget to share your opinion in the comments. Which team do you think needs a radical tactical change right now? Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to become part of the analysis zone.